As you know, Pokémon Legends Z-A introduced 45 new Mega Pokemon, bringing the grand total to about 93. It may sound like a lot, however, but when you consider that there are over 1,000 Pokemon in total, and that some Pokemon have multiple Mega Evolutions. Oh, look, y'all, it's Charizard. It's father's favorite son, Charizard. This doesn't even begin to scratch the surface of Pokemon that don't have Mega Evolutions at all. Now, obviously, not every single Pokemon can have a Mega. That makes the gimmick feel less special if they just all have one at the same time, and you want to give it a chance to feel fresh every few years. However, that doesn't mean there are Pokemon that don't deserve to have a Mega right now today. Join us as we go over some of the Pokemon that the Pokemon Company has either forgotten or willingly ignored because someone in the design team thought it would be funny to troll us. And I say us because I got my brother Moxie with me, and he'll handle a special section of the video for us later that I think you guys are really going to enjoy. If you guys like these kind of videos, don't forget to click like, subscribe, so that I can make more of them and give you guys more of what you love, and I get more of what I love, which is you guys. Let's get started. Let's get the obvious one out the way. Flygon. Flygon is a dragon ground type introduced in Gen 3, which means it's the first dragon and ground type ever introduced in the series. You know who was the second? Garchomp. You know who got a Mega? Garchomp. You know who got a second Mega? Garchomp. You could have literally just given one of those to Flygon. I'm not even a huge Flygon fan myself. However, the people love Flygon and I'm a man of the people, so I'm doing this for you guys. Seriously though, Flygon is a Pokemon with a great design that is just begging to be expounded upon with a new form and a stat spread that is just begging for a 100-point boost. 100 base speed isn't a historically good speed tier, but obviously that's become a little bit outdated with how fast Pokemon has gotten. It also has 100 base attack, which could absolutely use an increase because that's also just not enough anymore. It also has 80 points in all of its bulk stats, which are on the edge of being good, but not quite enough. And I think a few points in each stat could go a long way for this Pokemon. For example, 30 points and just make its 80 bulk and make them both something like 95-95. It becomes a much bulkier Pokemon overall. If you take 40 of those extra 100 points and put it in an attack stat and go from 100 to 140, now you're looking at something with a really respectable attack stat. Obviously, there are Pokemon that already have this attack stat, like, you know, Iron Hands. It's not a Mega. However, you know, we're working with what we got here. I'm sorry, guys. You don't sue me. It's not my fault. I didn't make the guy. Additionally, if you take the last 30 points and put it in his speed, you get to about 130, which is, I think, really good. Not quite as fast as some of the other Megas, but I think a Dragon type with those stats can really do well. Additionally, Flygon looks like a bug. Its pre-evolutions look like bugs, so why not make it a bug? I don't know where the ground dragon came from to begin with, but if it looks like a bug and it sounds like a bug, just make it a bug. However, because Mega Garchomp Z lost its ground typing, if they wanted to make it a ground and dragon type Pokemon, or keep it that way, I should say, then I guess that'd be kind of fine. As far as abilities, Levitate is a really good one, and it's hard to give that up, so I would consider keeping it. But something that actually just came to mind while I was recording this is completely off script, by the way. It has those big bug eyes, right? So what if we gave it compound eyes and made it the only viable user of like Dragon Rush, right? The best like physical dragon move that we have. It's just the problem is that it's inaccurate. What if we just gave it like compound eyes and just increase the accuracy? Maybe buff Dragon Rush a little bit, so with compound eyes it goes to 100% accurate. And now you have a Flygon that can do like some kind of Dragon Dance, Dragon Rush stuff with the increased 140. Now we're cooking with grease. I think I like that idea, and I think you do too. And if you don't, you're wrong. Next up, we have a 2-for-1 special, and it's Xerneas Yveltal. Yeah. Why are you booing me? You know I'm right. When Pokemon Legends Z-A was announced, there was a massive excitement in regards to Lumia City getting a brand new and like basically complete game, because X and Y were not very complete games. The way that it always should have been. New Megas and updated forms and the story for Xerneas Yveltal were something that I thought we were like basically guaranteed to receive. Zygarde got a story and it got a new Mega, which it deserved because it didn't really have much in the old games at all. But you would think because they all came up together, you would have that, right? However, Xerneas and Yveltal basically just got like post-game capture, basic like side quest stuff. And it didn't really amount to anything. It was kind of a letdown. And it's not like there wasn't any precedent, right? In Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, Groudon and Kyogre got primals. When those games got remade and there was a new mechanic added to those games that wasn't there before, the box legendaries for those games got new forms. Even in Legends Arceus, Palkia and Dialga received new forms. Now, those weren't like primals or megas, but it got new designs and like new stat distributions, right? It got a change, something to refresh in the Pokemon. And I get it. These Pokemon are already very strong. However, if you look at how the landscape of Pokemon has changed in the last few years, you have the Calyrexes have been introduced, right? Miraidon and Koraidon have been introduced. These Pokemon with either really high base stats or really busted abilities or both. And Xerneas and Yveltal, I don't think they hang as well anymore. Like they'll still be very good because they have very solid roles to fill. But like, for example, Xerneas was not very good in Sword and Shield after coming off like being the Pokemon of the century before then. Even a lot of like mega Pokemon, which is what we'll be playing with in Champions, have higher base stat totals than Xern and Yveltal do. Admittedly, I'm not really sure where I would put the stats for these things, or like where I would change like their abilities as much. But this section wasn't really about that for me. It was more so like that these Pokemon have just been kind of sitting in the dust for like a decade and we've done nothing with them after being very prominent Pokemon for a long time. And it's just kind of annoying to me as someone who really likes both of these Pokemon. Would like to see them both get something brand new to just bring them back to life. At minimum, if I had to give some kind of idea of what I would do with the stats, I think that Xern needs to be able to check Miraidon and Koraidon, because as it stands, both those Pokemon kind of just do whatever they want. I know Koraidon not as much because it might lose access to Terra depending on what Champions does with rules going forward. But at the very least, Miraidon needs some kind of dedicated check, right? And I think Xerneas could be that. And then I think Yveltal needs a way to check both the Calyrexes. I know it checked Cali Shadow pretty well, but not Cali Ice. And I think some kind of ability or stat buff to maybe its defense can really help in that department, right? So you don't want to just get KO'd by Glacial Lance. So I think making Xerneas have a way to maybe check Miraidon on the speed end, and then maybe be able to take like Flare Blitzes and Sun from Koraidon, and then make Yveltal able to check and defeat Calyrex Shadow, as well as be able to take, you know, at least 1 or 2 hits from Cali Ice, and also, you know, retaliate with like Foul Play or something and Sucker Punch. That could be really helpful. So I think that's what I would do with those Pokemon. Redesigns, you guys let me know in the comments if you think would be really good redesigns. And let's go on to the next set of Pokemon.
Okay, so Maine is making me write about the Sinnoh starters of all Pokemon because I'm unfortunately Gen 4's strongest hater. That being said, it is pretty weird that Sinnoh is the only gen with no Mega representation as far as the starters are concerned. Gen 1 starters have Megas, Gen 2's rocking 2 out of 3 due to Typhlosion already getting a new form in Legends Arceus, Gen 3 starters have Megas, and Gen 5 starters just have Mega Emboar thanks to Typhlosion once again. But nothing for Gen 4. Personally, if it were up to me, all of the 2D era starters would get Mega Forms to help them stay relevant despite the power creep in the game. But Maine is only paying me to talk about Gen 4, so yeah. Wait, am I getting paid?
I've quite literally never been paid for a Moxie boosted video. Of course you're not getting paid. Now get back to work.
Okay, this one's kind of a freebie. As far as Infernap goes, we all know they're going to give him the Somersault Cloud from Journey to the West, since this is just Sun Wukong. I could pretty clearly picture an Infernap flying on a cloud with a big buff to its offensive stats and speed, and access to Levitate as an ability. But unlike Mega Delphox, Infernap would actually really love Levitate as an ability. Much like Mega Greninja though, all they'd really need to do is pump those offensive stats. I'm going to say 30 to attack, 40 to special attack, and 30 to speed, leaving it just above the Chien-Pao speed tier, and honestly making it a pretty decent mon. Torterra is definitely a Pokemon who's been robbed of plenty of buff opportunities in the past, with it only now getting access to Shell Smash all the way in Generation 9. Its typing isn't great defensively since Grass and Ground leaves it ×4 weak to Ice and ×2 weak to Fire, Flying, and Bug, so building this thing too defensively isn't going to do it many favors. But we can definitely decrease that speed stat, so we're not only left with more points to allocate, but we can even let it be a better Trick Room Pokemon. 56 speed is in that dead zone where Shell Smash isn't letting it move first, and it's not quite slow enough to use Trick Room to its fullest extent. So let's drop its speed all the way down to 26, leaving it slower than Amoonguss but still faster than Torkoal, while giving us 30 more points to spend. Let's pump its attack and defense by 50 each, leaving it 159 attack and 155 defense, and we can also throw the final 30 points into special defense to get it to 115. This makes Torterra a beast under Trick Room, and it can even tank hits fairly well despite its common weaknesses. As for abilities, I'm thinking Water Absorb would be great, as it's quite literally a continent with a tree on it. He's thirsty, dude. And it gets to ignore Surging Strikes, which is pretty sick. Anything to nerf Urshifu. As for Empoleon, this mon is just a shame. There's no reason a Steel Water type should be this bad competitively. This is going to be a pure stat buff because competitive is already the best ability for it in my opinion. We've got 100 points to play with, so let's cook. We'll throw 30 points into its defense, bringing it to 118. We'll also buff its special defense by 20 to get it all the way up to 121. These defenses off of a base 84 HP stat means it'll be able to tank a hit for once. We'll also give it a mostly useless, but frankly realistic 20-point stat buff to its attack, leaving it at 106. And we'll finally dump the remaining 30 points into special attack, meaning we're left with a base 141 special attacking Steel Water type with incredible bulk. There is absolutely no chance that this thing with competitive as an ability could ever be bad. It's that simple. Take notes, everyone. Back to you, man.
Thank you, Brother Moxie. Now let's keep this party rolling. Next up, we have another 2-for-1 special, which is a pair that I'm picking specifically for me and the Gen 1ers. Yeah, I get it. Gen 1 gets everything. I don't care. We created this. Cry about it.
We created this. This didn't exist before we were here.
The Needles are two of the coolest Pokemon that have never received any kind of upgrade ever. Early fan favorites, especially for myself, whose design perfectly encapsulate what Pokemon is, at least to me. Those like really like ferocious, monstrous beasts that start off as little cute things that you capture and train up for war. I genuinely can't think of Pokemon that have been waiting as long as these two have for something to bring them back to the forefront of relevancy. Up until the introduction of Wooper, the Needles ground poison typing was exclusive to them, giving them an offensive typing that hits 7 types for super effective. That is so strong because there is no type that can resist both at the same time. With 5 resistances and an ability in sheer force that powers up all of their moves with secondary effects, which is pretty much all of them that they actually use, these Pokemon should be good for all intents and purposes. However, they were born on the Game Boy. While in Gen 1 having 505 base stats that are midfully distributed was fine, it simply isn't cutting it anymore. The 100 additional points would go such a long way on both of these Pokemon. I do think they both should stay special attackers, with one being more offensive and the other one being a bit bulkier, similar to how they are now, and similar to how Latios and Latias are for a more direct reference. For Nidoking, I would drop its useless attack by 30, increase its special attack from 85 to 145. I'd probably only add 20 to its speed, making it 105, just for like balancing purposes, and then make its defense and special defense 102 and 100 respectively. Now that's a real Pokemon. For Nidoqueen, I'd give her 30 in each bulk stat, for 117 and 115 respectively. I'd bump her speed to that nice 100 round 100 speed tier. That only leaves 16 points, however, so I'd drop the attack by 40 points and add the 56 to its special attack, giving it 131, which I think is more than enough with its newfound survivability. Also, sheer force is really good, so they can honestly keep those abilities, and I think that these Pokemon can become meta relevant once again, if not meta dominant. Now, for the most part, I'd say most of these picks have been pretty balanced, right? Pretty fair, but it's time to get a little biased. You guys did not think you were safe, did you? You did not think I would leave the GOAT out of this. No, the next Pokemon is Gholdengo. Gholdengo is Pokemon 1000, arguably the single most special Pokemon of all time, and one of the coolest, and they never do anything for this guy. And you're probably thinking, oh, he just came out. I don't care. He has no merch, no plushies, no girlfriend, no money because he's making it rain all the time, so he's kind of broke. He needs something. He just barely got like a cool TCG card in the last few years, and admittedly the card's really nice and it does do pretty well, so that's something. Still, it's not enough. Additionally, Dango was one of the many Gen 9 Pokemon that got power crept out of his own generation in the later stages of Scarlet and Violet, and I'm about to fix it. That special attack stat, bam, 27 points up to 160. And you're probably thinking that isn't much, but you just wait, I'm only getting started. Next, the speed. We're using 52 points to get up to 136. Take that Delphox, take that Fluttermane, take that Chi-Yu. Remaining 21 points will be split amongst its bulk for 105 defense and 102 SPDF. Now, this is the best part. Its ability, better than gold. It keeps all the properties of good as gold, but now whenever you use Make It Rain, instead of -1, you get a +1. So no more nasty plan. I don't care if it's ridiculous, if it's broken and it's overpowered. He is the channel mascot and he is Pokemon 1000 and probably my top two of one of my 2 favorite Pokemon of all time. He deserves it. I do not care. Cry more. Seriously though, that's the list for now. There are some other Pokemon that obviously could have made it onto this list. There may be a few more Pokemon that I may have written in the script for and did not include for the sake of, time and my own sanity. But maybe I do a sequel. Maybe you guys run up the likes in the comments and say, do a sequel. We need part 2 in the comments below. Maybe you go to the comments and you write out other Pokemon that deserve megas that you think I left out that you would include. Let me know. Otherwise, I want to thank you guys for being here. I want to thank Marcos for joining me on this video. It was a big project that I really had in mind. So I'm very grateful he hopped on it with me. Otherwise, click like for your boy, subscribe if you're new. Hit those channel memberships so I can afford to make more videos like this, because it actually does cost money to put this production together and to get the thumbnail drawn and all that stuff. But I think I got all the YouTuber stuff out the way. Wanted to put it at the end of the video so you guys can kind of just enjoy the footage and the process and the work before I got here at the end and started begging and doing all the YouTuber stuff. Otherwise, thank you guys for being here once again. Click like for your boy, subscribe if you are new, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.